Welcome back, Tiger Tamers. I am Lupine Fiasco, and this is Daily FaB Gameplay. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to a state of zen. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I'll talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now compared to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like the upcoming ProQuest season and, most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaBery deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord and the shiny, shiny cardboard Talishar card back. At higher tiers, your name will appear in every DFG video, you'll get bonus DFG content every week, and there are even more benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. And if you just want memes and rambling, follow me on X. Now, without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and about our game plan. Am I supposed to tell you what Vynnset does? I don't know. She sends above rate attacks off of small hands after generating rune chants through her own hero ability, but also has to play with 3 intellect because of that same hero ability. Overall, if we were keeping Vynnset off of large hands, either by forcing her to block or by just lucking into her hands not being able to do very much, then we are going to go far above rate compared to what she can do with 1 or 2 cards. But once we start letting Vynnset keep large hands, she is able to put very large turns together with Shadow Puppetry and Mavrian Skies, plus any sort of instant speed shenanigans with Spellbound Creepers, which is all to say that if we are doing normal aggro things, Vynnset should not be able to really tee off on us unless she wants to take a bunch of blood debt and physical damage in order to set up those big lines. So in theory, we will race and we will win. Now at the outset here, I am not bringing in Tide Flippers. I am sticking with Strides of Reprisal. I think that's wrong. As much as having extra block value and a Crouching Tiger is good, Tide Flippers does at the very least keep Vynnset off of a turn 1 Scepter of Pain play, and in the future, with us having 30 blues in our deck, can turn any 2-block blue in our hand into a 3-block for stopping rune chant damage. And we are putting Vynnset into a position where she will potentially be paying life to her hero power in order to get rune chant damage through any potential arcane barrier, which, if our hand is good enough on offense, is just accelerating what we want to be doing anyway, which is reducing Vynnset's life total. So I am running Stride in this game. If I could redo this, I would be running Tide Flippers, just in an effort to really try it out. It's entirely possible that AB0 into Vynnset is the correct play. She is going to be attacking us with things that we can block with Stride, so having that extra Tiger might be worth it for a big Art of War turn, but I would try it with AB1. As far as the 60, we are boarding out blue Harmony of the Hunt and boarding in Warmonger's Diplomacy. Warmonger's obviously very good against Runeblade. If we do draw into a Warmonger's hand, we can block pretty aggressively, put Vynnset on keeping a large hand, and then play Warmongers to punish her for doing so. Now that usually is not going to be the correct play. More often than not, if we can send a big hand and pay for it with Warmongers, that's what we want to be doing. But Warmongers as a way to catch up in a Runeblade game where we are behind is always a solid play. Outside of that, we're just going to be doing Zen things, looking to send big turns, looking to convert big hands into big damage. Vynnset does have a decent amount of disruption with widespread destruction and widespread annihilation, but those do take some setting up on her part. If we were keeping her off of big rune chant counts, or if she's playing hand to hand, then she's going to have a hard time putting those together. And for the most part, just being a card down shouldn't impact us too much, especially because widespread destruction and annihilation are both attacks that we can block with Traverse and, in this case, Stride. I'm not too versed in the Vynnset matchup. I have one local Vynnset player that I don't always have the opportunity to play against. I don't run into her a lot on Talishar, so this will be a good learning experience for all of us. At the outset here, we lost the die roll and will be forced to go second. In a perfect world, we would go first, if for no other reason than to prevent Vynnset from making rune chants on the first turn of the game. Vynnset, because she takes that intellect penalty at the start of every turn to make her first rune chant, if we can keep her off of that for a turn, then that works pretty well for us. We have an interesting hand here where we can transcend, but we have to do some weird shenanigans to pull it off. The line would be pitching one of our reds into levels of ancestry, levels of enlightenment, responding 2 levels by playing Homage to Ancestors, transcending, generating a resource, then pitching our chi into Zen, still as a response to levels, to tutor a card and put a blue into our pitch zone to give levels go again. The question is, which card do we want to pitch to levels? Levels will come in for 3 with go again. We will have to give it go again in order to continue our turn. And we will be floating 1 resource. So we could grab Chase the Tail, play the Crouching Tiger for 0 with go again, use our floating resource from Kasaya to play Chase the Tail, follow Chase the Tail with Aspect of Tiger to generate a second Tiger and give Aspect go again, and then play the Tiger for 4, getting the Chase the Tail buff and Shuko buff. If we were to instead pitch Aspect of Tiger into levels, then our turn is looking like levels for 3 with go again, Tiger for 0, Tiger Swipe for 5, which is much lower damage. So the correct line here is to just pitch Tiger Swipe into levels, then transcend and grab Chase the Tail. We don't get an arsenal with this line, but we are pushing the most damage and we are transcending. So the lack of an arsenal may hurt us in the long run, but we're dealing a lot of damage on turn 1 and we're getting that chi into our deck early. We can see that I saw the same line here. We are just going for the big upside play. We could have grabbed a Tiger Swipe to just push some damage at the end of this if we wanted to arsenal Aspect of Tiger, but I really don't see a world where it's worth sacrificing multiple points of damage to set up an arsenal, especially against a hero that has the ability to disrupt our arsenal. So overall, we push a lot of damage, and feeling really good about that. We have a chi in our deck. At this point, Vynnset is going to give us the opportunity to block. Of course, we don't have Arcane Barrier, so we will just be taking all of these rune chants. Deathly Delight coming in for 5 will generate 1 point of health for Vynnset, regardless of whether we block or not. Having a blue in our hand would, if we broke Traverse here, would be helpful. We could play 100 Winds. We wouldn't even need to play 100 Winds. We could play Passover, pitch into Sacred Art, Transcend twice, generate 2 resources, make 2 Chi, and make 2 Tigers. The problem with doing that, and especially with breaking Traverse to do that, is then what? We've made 3 Tigers, all of the Tigers have +1 power, that's great. We have this 100 Winds and the Spinning Wheel Kick. We can tutor something with Zen. Either 100 Winds, Spinning Wheel Kick, we could grab a Tiger Swipe if we wanted to, but the problem with all that is it is a decent amount of damage, but it isn't that big explosive damage turn that we really want Traverse to fuel. And Vynnset has a ton of armor. She has Crown, she has Dyadic Carapace, she has Grasp, she even has Bloodied Oval. So just with armor itself, she can put 8 block on the table. If we thought Tiger Swipe was guaranteed to hit, then grabbing it to effectively deal 7 points of damage with it plus the 3 Tigers it would generate is a really good rate, but it won't hit. There's no way it does. So rather than breaking Traverse and putting together a decent turn, but not a massive one, I think we just don't block this. We take our 5. On our turn, we pitch Passover to send a pretty cruddy hand. We're sending a 3-card 9 between Kakara, 100 Winds, and Spinning Wheel Kick, and then we arsenal our Sacred Art and look to get bigger value on a future turn. I don't believe having a Tiger from Stride makes the turn significantly better. It translates into 1 point of damage from the Kakara buff. It really isn't where we want to be with Stride of Reprisal. So we're just going to take our 5 here, let Vynnset gain a life, and then crack back for a pretty underwhelming 9. Absolutely, we could have dealt more damage. We'd be looking at probably 8 more damage this turn if we broke Traverse to grab that Chi in order to transcend with Sacred Art. But why would we do that for 8 damage when we can look at doing it for even more damage if we see an Art of War? If all of our Tigers get to attack for 2, now we're really cooking. Now, the downside of this is we leave Vynnset with 4 cards available to play with. She does not punish us too heavily. Setting up the second Runeblood incantation is really good for her, but at the same time, she is not converting those 4 cards to very much damage or very much disruption. So this Deathly Delight puts us to 25. At this point, I believe Vynnset, she did not pay into her hero ability, so she will go up to 27 at the end of this. We have an impressive looking hand here between 100 Winds, Gust Wave Bonds, and the ability to transcend. Sadly, we are not pairing this with Art of War, so we can think about whether we want to play our Sacred Art. We can think about, first question, does having a Tiger in this hand help us? And I believe the answer is maybe. We could bonds for Chase the Tail. So if we broke Stride, we take 4 damage, we go to 26, we get a Tiger. At that point, our turn is probably going to be play Gust Wave, pitch Bonds, play Stir the Pot to transcend, generate a 3rd resource, pitch into Zen to grab Bonds, follow Descendant with Bonds, Bonds grabs Chase the Tail, attack with Kakara, attack with Tiger, attack with Chase the Tail, attack with Tiger, attack with 100 Winds. And that seems really strong. That's a good line. We also hold on to that Sacred Art if we grabbed a chi with Traverse, we're kind of in that same position as we were last time, where now we can pitch the chi to play Gust Wave, we can play Stir the Pot, Transcend, generate a resource, use our 3 resources to play Sacred Art, Transcend, generate a resource, make tigers. Now the problem with this line is we have 2 chi in our hand with a floating resource and no way to spend all of those resources. What I would like to do here is break Stride. If we don't break Stride, the most we can do with this hand is play Descendant, pitch Bonds, play Stir to Transcend. We have 3 resources and a chi in hand. We pitch the chi into Zen to find another Bonds, follow Descendant with Bonds, follow, probably grab Spinning Wheel Kick, attack with Kikara, attack with Spinning Wheel, attack with 100 Winds, which is still a fine damage line. I would just like to get my Strides value now, get a lot of extra damage, and then still have Traverse for a future turn. Decide not to block. We'll see what I do with this hand if we are just going to take the Bonds line. Do decent enough damage with Spinning Wheel Kick rather than Chase the Tail. The other question is, am I going to play Sacred Art this turn? I don't think we should. I think we want to save Sacred Art for an Art of War turn, especially with the understanding that we can do Sacred Art on Vynnset's turn, especially if we draw another Transcend instant. We have the ability to double Transcend on Vynnset's turn. Sacred Art is an instant, so if we get threatened with any sort of arsenal disruption, we can get Sacred Art out. We can save it. Taking what I believe is the worst possible line here by playing out the Sacred Art to make those tigers, but the reason I need the tigers is because I didn't break Stride, and if we had broken Stride on that last turn, then I would be able to put this line together and still have Sacred Art for an Art of War turn. Now we are generating damage here. We are doing a lot of damage with all of this, and we even get this chi out of our hand. So we aren't going to take an intellect penalty. Should we arsenal a tiger, or should we arsenal 100 Winds? I think arsenaling a tiger here is fine. I would like to attack with the 100 Winds. I think having 100 Winds in arsenal doesn't do enough for me to risk losing it to arsenal disruption. Perfect. We arsenal the tiger, which will work well with any tiger swipe or chase the tail that we draw into naturally. Vynnset sigils up to 14, but still overall, I believe, despite doing a lot of damage, that being a very good turn, I think that was much worse than if we had just saved the Sacred Art, and we can even see here how good this turn would be if we had Sacred Art. Vynnset attacks with Deathly Wail. We take 3 arcane damage. We block Deathly Wail with Traverse and Stride. And then, if we still had Sacred Art in our arsenal, we can attack with our tiger for 0. We can drop in the ocean, give it -1, Sacred Art up to 0 on the tiger, then play Art of War. We transcended twice, so we're floating 2 resources to pay for this massive turn. Assuming that we did not have Stride, if we had broken it on our last turn, then we still have Sacred Art in arsenal. This turn gets a little weirder because we need a target for drop, but we can still play the Art of War by pitching Drop in the Ocean. We could then pitch our chi into Zen in order to grab a blue Gust Wave or a blue Bonds to follow up red Gust Wave, still got our Bonds effect, but also have played a blue so that we could play out the Sacred Art. As it is, block 3 here, I think that's great. We do not innately have the ability to transcend, which is sort of awkward here. So we want to open with Art of War, and we want to banish the Crouching Tiger. The question is, what are we pitching to pay for the Art of War? Are we pitching Drop in the Ocean, or are we pitching Chi? If we pitch Chi, we lose the ability to Zen effect, and we're just hoping that we draw into something worthwhile. If we pitch the Drop in the Ocean, we keep our Chi in order to Zen, but we lose any potential upside from double transcending this turn. I think the correct line here, without knowing what the top 2 cards of our deck are, is to pitch the Drop in the Ocean to play the Art of War, banish the Crouching Tiger. The upside of having 2 floating resources to pay for Gust Wave and probably Chase the Tail is so much higher than the potential upside of transcending, because we can fetch a Bonds, and a Bonds is really going to make this turn pop. Red Bonds just being 5 with Go again under Art of War, fetches Chase the Tail, which is going to combine with the Tiger we already have in hand, plus a Tiger in Arsenal. We even have our Aspect of Tiger to make another Tiger if we wanted to, or to put something in Arsenal. We could grab Tiger Swipe at the end of this if we wanted to really make Vynnset sweat. So I would like to play the Art of War. I'd like to pitch Drop to do it. There is a line where we pitch the Chi into Zen to grab like 100 wins that then allows us to transcend with Drop, but like, what are we doing with that Chi? What does that Chi do for us? I would like to guarantee that I can activate Zen to get Bonds. And if we can double transcend with Drop another blue card, another instant, or even just transcend once with another blue card, that's really good upside. But now, although it is statistically likely that we should draw another blue with the way our deck is constructed, we missed it. So we don't have the ability to transcend, which means that we are in a position where we're sending a lot of damage. Double Gust Wave is 8, Aspect is 12, we're going to make 2 Tigers, which will attack for a total of 3, and then we get to E-Strike at the end of it for hopefully 6 draw cards, so we're pushing 21 damage, which is still a ton of damage to throw at Vynnset right now. But imagine if this Drop in the Ocean was a Chi, so that we could get a Bonds. That would just be massive for us. Plus, unless I'm mistaken, if I look at my discard, I have a Bonds in my discard already. So now we have 2 floating resources. We have double Gust Wave. We get to double Bonds. We can still get a Chase the Tail and just pitch E-Strike to play it from the second Bonds. This would be an incredibly massive turn. That is still impressive. It's still going to deal a lot of damage, but we took the risky play, and I don't feel that we were in a position where we needed to, because even without knowing that the top of our deck was Red Descendant and E-Strike, we were looking at a very big Bonds turn if we had just kept the Chi to tutor it. The biggest question at this point, considering that we are going to play Descendant, play Tiger from Arsenal, is what mode are we choosing for E-Strike? Are we choosing +2 or draw a card? Considering our life lead, I would like to choose draw a card because I want to set up another 5-card hand, and we are not going to be under a ton of pressure from Vynnset, and she still has a bunch of armor. We aren't threatening lethal here if we just send 8 damage. At the same time, so many of Zen's cards do similar things that having a random card off the top of our deck in our arsenal is almost always going to be a good thing. There are very few draws in our deck where we don't want it in arsenal. Especially at this stage in the game, even a Warmonger's here is really, really good. So Widespread Annihilation is going to banish a card from our hand. We cannot stop it from doing that. The card that we banish should probably be Ancestral Harmony. And on my turn, what I want to do is pitch Gust Wave into Kakara for 2 damage and then send E-Strike for 7. And the reason I want to send E-Strike for 7 is it is threatening lethal, and I want to get cards out of Vynnset's hand. Banishing the Gust Wave here just takes Gust Waves out of our deck, which is never what I want to do. Playing Harmony here is a terrible idea, and I don't quite know what the thought was. If we rip 100 Winds off the top, or maybe an Aspect of Tiger, we're solid, right? It was a 1-card 4 and that was really good. But there are so many draws that we can get that are totally unplayable with what we have. Chase the Tail puts us in a weird position. Bonds of Ancestry puts us in a weird position. Descendant Gust Wave with this hand isn't even that good. So this was just a bad play. There is no upside to making the Harmony play unless you somehow know that the top of your deck is a red 100 Winds. But even a red 100 Winds with this hand is okay. You deal 7 damage, you're not threatening lethal through armor blocks, and if you do want to play out the E-Strike, you go E-Strike for 5, go again 100 Winds for 4. That's still just 9 damage. Getting a 3-card 9 would have been way more impactful than the potential upside of a 3-card 9 or a 2-card 7 arsenaling E-Strike. So this was just a massive punt. We are going to send E-Strike for 7. We are still threatening lethal, though at this point, we aren't doing it through armor blocks. If Vynnset did decide to give us Creeper's Dyadic and Grasp, we catch her having to 2-card for us, which is still fine, but it would have been way better to also get 2 pieces of armor from her in order to keep herself alive. The hand we draw into is pretty garbage. We have we could convert this hand. We could attack with Bonds of Ancestry for 2, play Path Well Traveled to give it go again, generate a chi. Let's progress to where we are getting hit for 7 with a Mauvrian effect. We can't just block this with Shuko and keep 4 cards and Kakara to try and get a resource to cheat some actions with. Because if we take 5 and go to 1, Vynnset generates 2 Rune Chants, has the action point, and can kill us with Flail. So we have to actually block this out completely. We can do that with either 2 pieces of armor and a 3 block, which would let us probably block with Tiger Swipe, Blue Bonds, and on our turn we I don't know, do something else. This hand is very awkward to work with because we have to block with one of these cards to protect the Mauvrian hit effect. What we are probably looking at doing is attacking with Kakara by pitching Bonds. We can block with Tiger Swipe and 2 pieces of armor, stay at 6. We then pitch Path Well Traveled into Kakara and pitch blue bonds into red bonds. So we are threatening 6 points of damage overall. It's not very good. But it seems like the best line we can put together. We do want to be pressuring Vynnset as opposed to attacking with red bonds, pitching blue bonds, and then arsenaling Path Well Traveled. I would like to force more out of Vynnset. I don't think we're in a position where we can set up an arsenal here. Keep in mind, too, that if Vynnset had to block this Kakara, she probably doesn't get to make this block because she doesn't have Dyadic anymore. She also wouldn't have gotten to make the last block because she wouldn't have had Grasp. So we are already starting to see the ramifications of having missed 2 points of damage on Vynnset. And if Vynnset doesn't have a card in her hand because she had to block with it, then potentially she doesn't get to set up this Runeblood incantation. We do have to block the Deathly Delight. Vynnset is going to go up to 2, unfortunately. We can put a 3 block in front of the Deathly Delight and go to 1, which is playing it pretty risky, but with a blue, a Gust Wave, and a Bonds, we can definitely put something strong together. So I like blocking with either Warmongers or Shifting Winds. We are not going to play the Warmongers at this point. We're too late in the game. Vynnset is going to generate a Rune Chant with her Runeblood and with Flail, and if she can stay at 2 and we can't kill her through that and we just play Warmongers, then she just kills us with Flail. We can't stop the arcane damage. But we are going to go to 1 here, and our line is going to be Kakara, Descendant, Bonds, find Aspect of Tiger, attack for 3, and then send the Tiger for 1, which should be enough to strip Vynnset's hand. She still makes a Rune Chant from the Runeblood incantation, but as we can see here, she goes to 1, so she can't just flail us, because she will take her point of damage from Flail before we take our point of damage from Rune Chant. This needs to just be Aspect of Tiger. I don't know why I picked 100 Winds if I just didn't see it, but I have confirmed there is still an Aspect of Tiger in our deck that if we get to attack for 3 and then attack for 1, Vynnset has to give us her hand. Because what Vynnset gets to do instead is just attack with Widespread Ruin and kill us. Now, it is worth noting that this hand is absolute garbage, and there is actually, unless Vynnset has just the most awkward hand on her turn, this hand doesn't actually win us the game. If Vynnset doesn't have Widespread Ruin here, and just makes her 1 Rune Chant from Runeblood incantation and passes, the most we can do is Kakara for 2, levels for 3 with Go Again, attack with Tiger Swipe for 2, Arsenal of Warmongers. It's terrible. We take 3 cards away from Vynnset and then probably die to this same line. But if we had attacked with Kakara for 2 and then done the Art of Tiger line, Vynnset is dead. She would have been dead on the last turn because she wouldn't have had the cards left to stop the Tiger from killing her, because she wouldn't have had creepers to block the Kakara with. So there was no single mistake in this game that cost us the win, but there were multiple mistakes that, when compounded together, did give us a loss instead of a win. And that was just based on sloppy play, and that's why we do these video reviews, so that we can see where we did make mistakes and where we can tighten that up in the future and see, hey, what if we just attacked with Kakara and pitched Harmony instead of trying to high roll a 100 Winds red off the top of our deck? Or see, hey, we could have blocked with Strides different and had a better turn. We could have used our Traverse differently if we just needed a Chi to tutor out of Bonds, which would have been an incredible turn, etc. There were so many different decisions we could have made in this game that would have gotten us the win, or instead, we got that loss. So, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this game. I certainly learned something. If you did, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free. It helps me out a lot. Check out my X. Check out my Patreon. Those links are in the video description below. But no matter what you do, catch me back here next time for more daily FaB gameplay. And until then, take care.